People are dicks. That's a fact. And in the world of team-based gaming, there will always be those who strive to ruin everything for other people. They might do it intentionally, or they might just be venting or lashing out, not even realizing how harmful they are to the gaming experience. But because of the way games like Heroes and League of Legends and Overwatch are set up, it's inevitable that you'll run into someone that, for one reason or another, is going to be a toxic waste of our precious air. Or maybe they're just having a bad day. Who knows? Either way, that shit can't fly, and having to spend 20 plus minutes with someone spewing insults, calling out every flaw your mother might have, or feeding like they're servers at a buffet can be painful. So what do? Well, most people have their own ways of dealing with that. Some even get dragged down into it, eventually becoming toxic themselves when all they wanted from the start was to have a fun, relaxing time playing a video game. So to help prevent that, here are my tips for dealing with toxic players. Now I will preface this by saying that these are my tips, the ones that work for me. They may work for you, or you may violently disagree with them, and that's fine. In no way am I putting my foot down and saying that you're an idiot if you don't follow these. But as someone who's trying to make content for this game whenever possible, I can't really afford to let myself get salty and start lashing out in chat, even if I sometimes really want to. So, if nothing else, take these for what they're worth. A few simple tips from someone with high blood pressure and a really long fuse. Tip number 1 is to mute them. And before you start jumping down my throat about how it kills communication and cooperation goes to hell because you can't hear what they're saying, let me tell you in all the ways that you're wrong. First off, silencing them prevents you from getting tilted yourself, which in turn will make you play much better. You won't waste time responding to their taunts or their insults or anything else they might be trying to throw at you to bait you into an argument, and therefore wasting more of your time. You'll get less stressed mentally, so you'll be able to focus more on the game and have a better enjoyment, and because you're not responding to them, there's less of a chance they'll keep typing in chat and wasting their time, so they'll continue to play as well. The bottom line is silencing them will cut out all the unnecessary distractions that a team-based game like this can provide. Now, as I said, a lot of people are going to complain that, no, you don't have good communication, you have no hope of winning now. What good is that communication going to do when it's 90% insults, or 90% taunting, or, God forbid, it's the opposite, it's someone trying to coach you. Yes, I get that you might have the best intention in mind, but what a lot of people don't realize is if someone makes a mistake, and you're like, hey, next time, wait for the team, or don't go so far out, or anything like that, no matter how nice you word it, even if you write, no offense, or just trying to help, but before you say it, it still sounds like criticism, and in the heat of the moment, people hate criticism. It doesn't matter who it is. Nobody's going to look at that in a 20-plus minute game where they're trying to do their best as it is, and then take it as, oh yeah, I should do that. Now, post-game, sure, if you can get them to stick in the post-game screen or two for a few minutes, you can explain to them, or if you're playing with a friend, even better, you can tell them over voice chat. But if you're playing with a bunch of randoms, nobody's going to want to hear it. As good as your intentions are, nobody will want to hear it. And that's the sad truth. So, mute the toxic player, don't try to help them, because there is no helping stupidity on the internet. That brings me to my next tip, communication. So let's say you queue up for a ranked game or an unranked game, or really anything else where you have the ability to communicate with your team before you actually jump into the game. This is your ideal spot to warn them of your weaknesses or let them know of your strengths. Don't brag, but let them know. If you're a really good warrior or a tank, let them know. It's like, hey guys, I got this, like, we're good. Or if you're a really good healer and you like playing a healer, let them know, because a lot of people will be really happy to see that someone steps up to those roles. That said, if you're not a good support and you happen to be like last pick, and they're looking for a support and no one's queuing up as one, you have lots of time before it gets to you to let your team know, guys, my support game is not on point, could someone please sub in for me? I know I'm last, but like, you're kind of giving your team a heads up with enough time that they can rotate it out and figure out somebody else to cover for it. Otherwise, you can't really be faulted for troll picking them because you've tried your best to get it clear. Now, you could also just bite the bullet and try to play a support anyway, and if you fail and they troll you anyway, or they start being toxic to you because you're bad at it, you did warn them, and then I refer you to step 1. Just fucking mute them. But you did everything you could. You warned them, and they didn't heed it. And like, normally, this is weird coming from me, because as I've stated several times, my number one auto-tilt button in this game, or really in any competitive game, are people who buzz into a ranked game and say, I will only play this. Be that one character or one role, it drives me crazy, because you are completely taking out the team aspect of the game. If you go into a ranked game and say, I'm not good at it, please don't make me do this, you've at least acknowledged the fact that it's not your strong point, someone should be able to cover for you. You've given them warning, and communication is freaking key in these things to begin with. So that's where it's like, you know what, you tried. I support you in whatever you try from that point on. Now, another thing that communication can add is, a lot of the times when you play these games, you're queuing with random people. Like, if you go with your friends, even better. Most of these tips won't even occur to you unless you have toxic friends, in which case, you've got bigger problems than toxic people on the internet. But with random people, you have no idea what their personality is going to be like. You have no idea how they're going to mesh with you, how you're going to mesh with them, things like that. The in-game lobby before starting it, or a draft picking menu or anything like that, is a fantastic way to try and build a good rapport to stop people from being toxic before they can. For instance, if someone picks a role, whether or not you like that character, back that role up, being like, ah, hell yeah, Arthas, love that guy. Or, yeah, freaking Nazebo, he's awesome. Like, things like that. Back somebody up, make them feel good about their pick, bolster their confidence, so in return, they will bolster yours, and you will work much better. Now, this won't work every single time, and a lot of the times you will find people who are like, the amount of times I've walked into a game and said, good luck, have fun, and in general speak, people have been like, don't need luck, we'll carry. Or, luck, fuck that noise. Like, you know, just being assholes for assholes' sake, or being overconfident for overconfidence sake. There's a big difference between bragging and confidence is all I'm saying here, and trying to stroke that ego before the game actually starts will hopefully stop people from being toxic once things go bad. Because sooner or later, things always go bad. Now, it's not always fair to blame toxic behavior on other players, and that brings me to tip number 3. Filter yourself. Now, this ties back into what I was saying earlier about trying to give advice in the middle of a game. Always rethink about what you're going to type before you type it out, especially if you're typing something out in anger or frustration. You see an ally rush in, get killed stupidly, or get pulled out and ganked by a Stitches or a Valera. Don't immediately type in, you shouldn't have done that, or maybe don't dive in, or be careful, or something like that. Like, things like that are just going to make people lash back at you, thinking that you're instigating something, when really you only meant to help. Criticism is always tough to hear, and in a game where there's always stress, it doesn't matter if you're trying for fun, there's still stress on some caliber. People don't want to hear it. Don't be an instigator. If need be, mute yourself. Just don't type anything. I very seldomly type anything in a match outside of good luck, have fun, GG at the very end, regardless of win or loss. And if we did really, really, really good, I might type a heart in the chat, because I'm in a good mood. But beyond that, I try to refrain from typing in the chat in general unless someone asks me a direct question. And even then, I better be dead when I type that response, because if I stop in the middle of a lane to type a response, I'm probably going to be. So that's the bottom line is, tip number 3, filter yourself. Now, sometimes people can be toxic without ever actually saying a word, and that's where this tip comes in. Tip number 4 is don't be afraid to carry. Now, sometimes you might be in a draft game, regardless if it's ranked or not, and you already see 1 or 2 picks that you're like, I don't really agree with that. And even if you're not backing them up like I suggested, that's fine. But if you start seeing a team downslide to the point where it's like, oh, we're not going to have a good team comp no matter what, and you're already eyeballing that juicy assassin you want to play, it might be time to rethink that. This is why I stress so hard that it's important to learn at least the foundations of all 4 of the basic class types that are in Heroes of the Storm. And this relates to the 4 or 5 types that are in other games like League or Dota or Overwatch. I don't know how many types all those games have, but regardless, learn at least 1 of everything, or maybe even 2 of everything, because things can get banned. They can get picked. You could be stuck. But if you're really good with like a tank and you don't have a tank, or you've only got 1, and nobody's picking a healer and your healer game is garbage, go for a character that you can carry with. Like, if you don't have a healer, Muradin can self-heal if he steps out of fights for a few seconds. Like, that's really handy to have when you're running between lanes trying to protect your allies. If you don't have a lot of damage, but you do need a healer, Karazim is essentially a multi-class hero. He's always kind of been just an assassin that can coincidentally heal. Tyrande's in a very similar role. If you don't have a good tank and no one's being a tank, and you don't have a really good, like, if you've got a melee assassin like Thrall or the Butcher, go Tassadar and Zarya. Throw shields on that guy. Keep him alive that way. Either way, you basically take what you can and do your absolute best with it. So it doesn't matter if you really, really wanted to play Tracer. If your team lacks a support and a tank and everything else, and you can play at least one of those, do your best. Because you can't make people play your game. The best you can do is just strive for a victory by playing theirs. That brings us to our 5th tip, which is to report the toxic player in the postgame. Now, I know a lot of people in this day and age are super hypersensitive, So if you say one thing out of line, they're going to run to that report button like it's their freaking binky or something. But you have to use reports responsibly. Blizzard still does check them, and there are categories for these reports for a reason. So you don't just report someone for being bad. That's like the worst, probably the meanest thing you can do. Because maybe they're just learning the game. Maybe they're having an off day. Maybe they're tired. Who cares? Being bad at the game is not a valid reason to report. But calling you out in chat, throwing curses every 2 seconds, like abusive chat, it's there for a reason. Going AFK, also there. But lots of things like that. Like, people report for the stupidest things nowadays. And you can't do that. You need to use them responsibly, otherwise why do we even have a report function in the first damn place? Now, one thing to make the reports actually kind of useful, and I don't know if this actually changes how Blizzard looks at them. I kind of like to feel like it does, but I've never seen concrete proof on this. Write a description for the report. Don't make it long, don't write a freaking book or an essay, because no one's going to want to read that. Keep it short, keep it concise, and keep it to the point. What did this person do that broke the rule that you're actually reporting them for? They were abusive in chat. What did they say? If they were AFK the whole game, point out, like, from the get-go, did not leave base until they were freaking removed, or something like that. I've actually seen games where an AFK person somehow managed to not get replaced by a bot for about 15 minutes, and I don't know how. The only conclusion I can draw is they were still actively at their computer, just dicking around with something else, but their character was not moving. They weren't getting dropped from the game or anything like that. They were actively there, just not doing a damn thing. Don't know how that works, but clearly that is something that can happen. The other thing I'm going to suggest is, and this is more of like an outsourced material here, but if you start finding that you're running into toxic players more and more frequently, keep a list by your computer. Keep a list and start keeping track of these names that you run into. Because you might start seeing this person once or twice more. Even if you report them, you may get grouped with them again. And that way, you already know this person's going to be toxic. So if it's not a game that if you're not playing in ranked, you can dodge. If you are playing in ranked, you don't want to get the leaver penalty and lose the points. That's fine. You can block them right from the get-go, and you will not have to deal with their bullshit a second time. If nothing else, it gives you that one extra step of preventive measures that they won't be able to throw more of their salt in your face. Keeping a list is something that I do just to keep, like, oh, I've seen this asshole 3 times today because I just happened to be queuing at the same time as him. This is getting ridiculous, and he's being a dick every freaking game. I'm not going to go into the chat and be like, that guy trolled all last games, fuck that guy, because that's not going to help anybody. Then you've actively made the other 3 members that are not involved in this at all wary that you're not going to be doing your job, or you're going to be feuding with this new guy here. How does that help anybody? Keep it to yourself, don't start an argument, and just block the guy. Go to step 1, mute him. Problem solved, or at least problem contained, and move on. Now, I was going to try and keep this confined to just the 5 tips, because I figured that'd be easier to remember, but I will include this as like a special grace kind of tip, because it is something that I wholeheartedly believe makes the game more enjoyable, and therefore cuts down on toxic behavior. Play the game with friends. Now, I shouldn't even have to explain this, but if you're queuing up with people you already know, either from real life, or online, or hell, maybe they're people you met in the game, and you've just played with them before, you're still going to have a better time. Seriously, even if you do badly, even if you get completely stomped by like a team of grandmasters you randomly got matched with, if you're playing with friends, and especially if you're playing on like some kind of a voice chat like Discord or Curse, and you're joking about it in the chat, or even while you're sitting there going like, this fucking sucks the whole match, you're still going to have more fun and be less tilted than if you had done that exact same experience with 4 random people. It's a fact. Like, your friends will be there to make you feel better. You don't have to worry about someone troll picking you last. You don't have to worry about someone not playing a support or a tank, because you can coordinate all of that yourselves. You will know going in that at least your friend, if nothing else, if you queue with 1 friend and 3 random people, that friend at least has your back. Even if they want to play something that's like an assassin, then you have their back. But you have at least a guarantee that someone there will be doing the game justice. Sometimes that's all you can ask for in a game like this. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be chiming in going, well, I play games like this by myself. Like, what do I do? Am I just completely screwed on this? No. Up until very recently, I only had like 2 friends who played Heroes of the Storm, and even though that number has grown since then, it's because of places like the Facebook Heroes of the Storm community where I met a ton of awesome people. I know Reddit has a humongous community that I think even the Blizzard devs chime in at some points. I don't know if they have a recruitment thread there, or if you can just post your battle tag and be like, hey, I want to get some games in, but either way, definitely worth looking into. I think Heroes of the Storm even has its own forums, although I don't see too much activity there. But either way, there are lots of communities to look into to find people to play the game. And in a pinch, make some friends in general chat. Find them that way. Just ask if anyone's looking for a game. If a game goes well with that random person, awesome, ask if you can add them afterwards, or just send them a request. And if it goes well, you'll keep playing games with them. If you play a game with a random person and they suck eggs and you just can't bring yourself to play a game with them again, you don't have to, because you have no obligation to talk to that person again. More power to you. But either way, playing games with familiar faces or friends or family or anybody that you know and can resonate with beyond just the 20 minutes a match takes will make your game better. It will make you less salty, it will make you less tilted, and you'll have at least one less person who's toxic. So those are my tips, and while I understand that most of them are going to be common knowledge by this point, sometimes it's a good idea to review the basics. After all, I've seen gamers I've known for years still fall into the trap of being baited into a mudslinging fest in the middle of a ranked game, and just the same, players new to games like this might need some alternative to becoming toxic assholes themselves. If you have any tips I didn't list here myself, do us a solid and list them in the comments below. But if not, then the next time you're in a game, be it quick or ranked or even unranked, do everyone a favor and just keep things positive. Otherwise, you're only going to be hurting yourself in the long run. And then, hell, you may as well go play League.
Victory.